We're a mixed group today of some old Pianimals veterans and some new guests who are here for the first time. So I'm going to speak a little bit about Pianimals and why I created Pianimals and what distinguishes it from the 150 other piano methods that are out there, and a little bit of background about Feldenkrais and piano, and then we'll do an awareness through piano movement lesson, which is basically a Feldenkrais awareness through movement lesson, but done either at the piano or with movements specifically related to piano playing. So up there you can't see it, but there's four big books up on my upper shelf that I've written with about piano technique and Feldenkrais, and over 250 awareness through piano movement lessons all told, and it's way too many. who's gonna wade through all that stuff? Actually, some people do. Some people do. I did when I wrote it, but so each book goes into quite a lot of detail about one aspect of piano playing. The first, the craft of piano playing, sets the hand up and shows how this grasping action creates a hand arch, and how that arch is totally necessary to walk well and to run well and to stand well on key, and if we just fall in and compress the arch, then we're actually creating tension, which we then have to let go of. But why create the tension in the first place? Why not just stand up? Of course, feeling the weight of the arm, but dealing with that weight well. Is it a dead weight or a living weight? So The Craft of Piano Playing was my first book to kind of explore this whole idea of seeing the hand from a structural, functional point of view. The structure is the way the bones are aligned, and the function is how they move and how we conspire to move them to do all sorts of different stuff at the piano. So people liked the book, they worked with the book, and they would come to me and they would do this totally strong, like they would slam that structure in. So, wow, you see how good my structure is? Yeah. It was like, oh. So I realized, okay, we need another book. And actually, so the second book takes that structure and emphasizes that if a human being stands up, they don't stand up to be like a statue, like, I'm holding myself up. No, the human being is the elegant design of verticality on only two legs. Almost as elegant as verticality on one leg, where you're balanced, you're not rigid. If you're rigid, you will fall over. But if you're balanced in a state of unstable equilibrium, stable equilibrium doesn't need to worry about falling over. Unstable equilibrium does need to worry about falling over. So why would we want that? Who wants to be unstable? Because there's so much possibility for movement. There's so much more possibility for movement. If you're stuck somewhere, you got to unstuck yourself before you can go anywhere. So I play my chord and I'm standing in it. Now I have to unrigidify my hand before I can go somewhere else. But if I stood up in a way that keeps me moving, then I've never lost track of an internal state, an internal hand state of movability based on a continuing experience of unstable equilibrium. It's like walking a tightrope almost. That's the second book, Honing the Pianistic Self-Image. Then, well, there's this thumb. So the finger stands up by flexing, whole finger flexion stands the finger right up. And by the way, you do this yourself, on the piano or on the fall board if your piano is closed. And notice the difference. If you curl the fingers the standard way, then that creates a certain amount of tension in the forearm. Yeah. I'm already holding. But if I do a whole finger flexion, the finger virtually flat, and stand up and allow, of course, the knuckle to fall follow forward and the arm to follow forward, I'm balanced. I'm in a state of unstable equilibrium. Um, of course, and I developed with this linking Feldenkrais to piano, I developed this idea of the hand as a mini body with the ankle, knee, hip joint, pelvis, L5, S1, torso, and the elbow functioning as the head. But of course, the we don't play piano like that. That would be a real mini body. So with the forearm horizontal, the upper arm, the biceps, has to bring itself into play to imitate the state of the arm when it's balanced on a finger in unstable equilibrium. So this standing up, the first two books largely to do with the standing up, but we noticed already in the first two books, each of which had a section on the thumb, that the thumb stands up totally different. And actually in Pianimals, I took it one step further, because we got to the point of realizing that the thumb, so there in Pianimals we have this, the hand is a mini body, but you'll see the two hands are not the same. So that diagram there, maybe you'll have to look at it yourself in your own copy of Pianimals. It shows all the joints of the finger and how they're related to a part of the body, like the ankle, knee, hip joint, etc. But the thumb, it's like the pelvis is missing. So when I stand up on the thumb, it's as if I stood up like this, but the one hip joint is way higher than the other hip joint. It's like wonky. So ages and ages of pianists and piano teachers. Do you put the thumb under in scales? Do you not put the thumb under in scales? Do you rotate in scales? Do you shift the arm in scales? All this stuff, if there wasn't that thumb, we wouldn't have this complication. But we do have that complication. So my third book, All Thumbs, Well-Coordinated Piano Technique, deals with all that. The fourth book, again, takes this idea of the hand as a mini body and says, well, what baby stood up at age 1 day and walked? No, babies have a year-long pre-standing apprenticeship where they're lying down and they're rolling around and they're doing all sorts of stuff. But if you try this while you're watching me, then very slowly, of course, then you start feeling the bones folding and unfolding without any exertion of the muscles that would normally fold and unfold them, the flexors and extensors. And so the baby is getting to know itself kinesthetically. The mother strokes the baby. The baby's sense of self comes from physical experience of self, sensation of self, external and internal. And it develops all sorts of movements slowly without any need to do something complicated like standing up, but it learns to press, to actually move things, to exert force through the skeletal frame. It's an incredibly complex and long-standing process. It takes a year. There are literally thousands of movements that need to be learned before the baby stands. And us pianists, we stand up the first day and then we wonder why there's tension and everything there. So Play the Piano with the Whole Self, my fourth book, lies the hand back down and does a lot of these weird Phil Cohen-esque exercise. Phil Cohen being my teacher in Montreal, who devised a lot of these things. So that there's this inner sensory enrichment of the hand, which makes it stand up and walk and run more naturally without ever thinking about it. And so these 250 awareness through piano movement lessons over these 4 books, I distilled down into 28 lessons in Pianimals. And I have all these wonderful illustrations. Here, I'll show you them. The Pupils book has very little text and wonderful big illustrations and big type music. So it's for kids, but as it turns out, all my adult students who are teachers and who are using this with their kids are benefiting from it themselves immensely, because somehow in distilling it down to 28 lessons, I managed to do that without making it superficial. I distilled it down without dummying it down. So still for many it's a little bit of a stretch, this whole idea of all these weird physical movements actually making you play the piano better. So this is why we're here. This is an introductory session for an 8-week look at the material in this teacher's manual. So all the exercises are in here. The pupils book doesn't have the exercise here. Pupils book is very few words. So the teacher goes through and does all the exercises and then teaches them to the student without all these words. But in going through all that, the teacher's hand sometimes gets transformed too. Well, how about that? I also put Pianimals pointers. This is a photographic version of the same 12 of the same 28 exercises, some of the most important ones, with photographs, just so that you get a sense of the shape of the hand and the action of the hand on key. So for those of you who are visually oriented, that's a real help. So Pianimals works on this assumption that if the kinesthetic experience is enriched, if the sensory image in the brain of the hand and the fingers and the palm and the wrist, if you feel all this more, it will work better. So many of the exercises we do have very little to do with playing the piano, and yet if you roll your hand around on the key like this, and you wonder, why is this person showing me this stuff? And then lo and behold, and you do it with a kid, and then afterwards they stand up better. I've had many students come to me and they play. Now, why would anybody play the piano like that? That would be like walking down the street and taking a huge kind of at every step. If I were going to a party, maybe I'd do that. But why do children do it? Because their fingers are so tiny. And the perception is that, that little tiny finger can't push that big, huge key down. And so I'm going to use my arm. So give your kid one of these sensory exercises where they're just rolling like this and unrolling like this, but not by curling the fingers and uncurling, but by sliding the hand, sliding the forearm and unsliding the forearm. Or else doing the monster, where you do a whole finger gentle grasping action, as if these are the eyes of the monster, and you just grasp enough that the eye just comes up a little bit above the key. And then all of a sudden this young pupil who just played like this, without one word said about don't do your arm like that, starts making a beautiful phrase where the arm is joining the notes while the fingers are making the notes. So this fundamental differentiation, fingers make tones and arms join tones. If you are obsessive about that, it can take that one thing alone, that one idea alone can take you very, very far. Because most of us, because we were taught this weighted technique or we were taught to relax, most of us, we blur the two. And most of us, we will put a little bit of arm juice into that note to give it a little more pizzazz, or give it a little more weight, a little more fatness, a little more tone. And we don't realize what it costs us. Because as soon as you add that little bit of that arm to your finger, the finger is resisting the arm. You've set up a conflict. And that conflict creates tension. And then now you've got to resolve the tension, which is why you see all these relaxation moves. So if the finger knew how to stand up well and stand up so quickly, that you can make a fortissimo with no use of the arm. How strange is that? I've been thinking about this for many years, and the last few years going to top flight pianists concert, like the world's top concert artists, whose fingers I would die for. They run around the keyboard. They're pianissimos, they're pianos. It's beautiful. There's so much sonority. There's so much expression. It's amazing. And yet, virtually every one of them, at the top level, they get to a fortissimo chord and they will invest the arm in it. So this, following these ideas of structural function for the hand can take you very far. But perhaps more important for us, it can get you and your students off on the right foot. A beginning pupil will do many of these actions naturally if you don't teach them technique at all. The beginning pupil will move the hand like that in this kind of whole finger grasping thing. I've had one of my teachers, Mario, what's his name? In Munich, Mario, this Spanish guy. He on purpose for 1 year he didn't tell his pupils anything. Just, okay, you go and play the piano. And they would go like this and play like that. And then they would get to the thumb and they would do the thumb like that. It was the funniest thing. And after about a month, they spontaneously started joining the thumb to the fingers. Like having the thumb play similar to the way the fingers play. But of course, all thumb says that the thumb plays opposite to the fingers. The finger stands up like this, but the thumb pushes the rest of the hand up to stand. So it's very, very different. Okay, I've been talking a little too long. So I think we've got just about everybody here who's going to be here today now. So I wanted to welcome you all, take a moment to say a real welcome and just how happy I am to have you all here. And even Christine Olson is here from Northampton, yeah. Christine organized the first ever Alan Fraser Piano Institute 10 whole years ago at Smith College. So here we are, and we're investigating this whole idea of how can we empower our piano playing and the piano playing of our students. So I divided Pianimals into 8 sections. So after the introduction, we're going to do the introduction today. We're not even going to start with the 8 sections, but the lying down. I have 5 different chapters on different ways you can move the fingers and manipulate the keys and all sorts of things you do with the hand lying down. A whole section on lying down. That's the pre-standing apprenticeship. And then we do something on the thumb, because the thumb is so weird and so different from the others. The thumb can be seen as an ugly duckling. And when you try make the thumb like a duck, like make the thumb behave like the fingers, everything gets screwed up. But when the thumb opposes and becomes totally different to the fingers, that's when the thumb comes into its own and empowers the entire hand and the entire arm. Then we do standing up. Then we get into the meat of, okay, we've been lying down, and now how do we stand up? Then we start walking, and then we start running. Section 5, from running into rotating. And this complicated question, how do you rotate? How much do you rotate? When do you rotate? In which direction do you rotate? It's sort of based on the fact, again, the hand is a mini body, and we may not be aware of this as we walk down the street. The pelvis is doing a sideways rotation and a forward and back rotation and an up and down rotation. It's doing a 3-dimensional figure 8 where now my left hip is more forward, it's more to the side, and it's more up. And now my right hip is more forward, more to the side, and more up. So we don't generally walk like this, but this is happening on a minuscule basis. It's different from and you'll see people who are really goal oriented, like, oh, they walk like this. they're really going for it and everything, but their hips are stiff, and the walking is quite dysfunctional. And those are the people who end up with the chiropractor or wherever years down the line because they have sciatica or whatever. So we want to avoid that at the beginning by dealing with rotation, and then hopping and leaping. Many people leap from the one place to another on the keyboard by carrying the hand with the arm. Fair enough. Of course, the arm does carry the hand. But when a real stand-up action powers the way the arm gets the hand there, that's much more like how the body leaps. When you leap from one stone to another crossing a stream, a big crane doesn't come over and lift you to the next stone. No, you power it with your legs. And the powering it with your legs is what makes it so accurate. So there's a whole section on that. And finally, there's a section returning to the fingertip, where that one little digit, that's the only point of contact with the key mostly. And Hanno, who may I introduce you, Hanno? He's the music editor for Pianimals. He saved my ass, basically. And coronavirus saved our asses too, because we had all this time all of a sudden, and this thing was being edited, and he went through pedantically like 4 or 5 times and found dozens of mistakes in the music scores every time. Like, it's really, we missed a couple actually, but we caught hundreds. So Hanno likes to, and he's a very fine jazz pianist and composer and teacher, and he likes to do this fingertip thing at the beginning where let's curl the finger, but of course he has his students do it in a way that you don't curl the finger and then all of a sudden there's no hand-hip joint. See, if I curl the finger and that hip joint collapses, that's a disaster. But there's a way of curling the finger, and that the effort for the curl ripples back, and there's your lovely, healthy hand-hip joint. He likes to do it at the beginning. And I debated about whether to put that section at the beginning, but in the end I decided no, because I kind of prefer to do it developmentally and leave that like the icing on the cake. Of course, and then section 8, the whole body, relating the mini body, the hand, to the whole body, because there's a huge participation of the whole self in playing. So we're going to spend 8 weeks, beginning on January 22nd, but, which brings me to an organizational thing, we are now here in my home, in the western part of New Belgrade, and we're not in my studio where I wanted to be, because I share my studio with my lovely landlady, who's an artist, a painter, very, very fine painter, my Olinica Jovanovic, and she teaches in the studio on Saturdays. Right now Saturdays and Monday, and maybe it's going to be Fridays and Saturdays. But anyway, if this continues, if her schedule continues like this, then, and it may well, then I'm going to have to shift this whole Pianimals Institute onto Sundays. And I'm worried about it because Sunday's a family day, and I'm worried that many people won't be able to come who would otherwise come. So if even some weekday evening would be better than a Sunday evening, I'm going to put a whatever you call it, a question, what do you call it, survey. Yeah, I'm going to do a survey so that we'll come up with the best time, but it looks like it may not be starting on January 22nd, but rather the 23rd, the Sunday, at 6 in the evening European time. The 8 weeks will go through, and each lesson here has a way of moving the hand which will be considered very, very strange, but if you do it, the reflexes gain something. Certain muscles start firing more and other muscles let go more, and then you go to play the piano, and a different part of the brain from the thinking brain, the motor cortex, has a great capacity to simultaneously and intuitively use the self-image to create the most effective way of doing a movement. So we're learning a physical grammar of spontaneity. If we can improve the way we move and also have more variety in the way we move, then we can have more musical choices, and we can have more variety in our color and in our expression. How many times do you hear somebody, and it's very expressive, but then the Chopin expression is the same as the Rachmaninoff expression, which is the same as the Bach expression, which is the same as the Beethoven. It's all expressive, and much of it is expressive on the local scale. And for me, to my mind, it actually comes from structural anomalies, structural functional anomalies, which, if you go through this system, you work them out, and all of a sudden, not only are you more on your feet physically, just in terms of no pain, no risk of injury, and better sound, and more virtuosic, better velocity, but also the sense of being master of the music opens up, and you start having a real sense of command over what you want to say as a pianist. And I think if we can impart this to our pupils, we'll have done them a tremendously precious service. So that's the aim of Pianimals and the aim of this 8-week course. So today, the awareness through piano movement lesson is not going to be one of those 8 sections, but we're going back to the introduction. And this is because if this lesson that we do today stays in your memory, not only my memory of, oh yeah, I did this and I can see myself doing this, but the physical memory, the sensations that you're going to evoke in your arm. If this lesson stays in that part of your physical memory, it will inform how you play and create new possibilities for phrasing and for color and for free, agile movement of the fingers. So would you please come to the piano? I'm sitting very low because that happens to be the only bench that I can find today. I like sitting low. We'll talk about why another time. So chapter 1 of Pianimals stems from the first lesson my teacher, Phil Cohen, ever taught Robin Belkin, who was my sister's best friend in high school and who is now a poet who goes by Robin Sarah, and who's written a book called Music, Late and Soon. The quote being from Wordsworth, "The world is too much with us late and soon," and who came back to the piano after a 35-year hiatus. And she writes a beautiful book. Let me show it to you. Yeah. I would highly. This is a great stocking stuffer for anybody who's looking for Christmas presents for people. It's a wonderful read, and she talks about the first lesson she ever had was Phil Cohen when she was 14, or no, less than 14. Anyway, and she went home and told her mother about this lesson, and the mother went, "This is completely weird." And then Robin said, "Yeah, but I liked it. And it's okay. We'll continue with this Mr. Cohen. Let's do the first with the piano closed. So again, if you know what you're doing, you can do what you want. If you can feel every part of yourself and feel how it's moving, you can move as you want. So let's see how much we feel our arms and our bodies. So would you please just raise your arm up in the air and let the hand dangle. Raise the arm up in the air and let the hand dangle. And now move it extremely slowly down. And don't do anything. And even when the finger touches the fall board and it starts to crumple or whatever, just watch and feel what it does. And then all sorts of stuff is happening, and then all sorts of stuff is happening, and then finally you slip off and your hand is resting on your lap or hanging down somewhere. Try that again. And really try to figure out what's going on. Because the fingertip will touch first, and then another fingertip, and then they'll start to crumple, But is there resistance? Are you trying to stand up, like play a note, like you would if you were playing a note, or can you just let them crumple? And finally, the thumb touches, and then you feel the wrist changing direction, and does the wrist end up laying on the fall board? And then if the arm keeps going, it will does it kind of slide the hand slowly, and then there's this unfolding of the finger, and each one of you will do it differently. And my problem is that I'm looking at me, but I should be looking at all of you. So let's see. Let me try and look at you guys. What's happening in your neck? Do you feel some part of your arm letting go? Oh, David, your camera's so high that I can't see your hand. I can't see the surface upon which your hand is gently descending, like a leaf wafting on the wind. But now it crumples. Yeah. So most of you managed to do it, okay, without the finger resisting, without the finger trying to play the piano or stand up or something, because we're doing it on the fall board. We're not doing it on the keyboard. So would you please, you've only done it 4 or 5 times. Please hang your 2 hands by your sides and notice the difference in sensation between left and right. It's amazing, like just a tiny little bit of sensory work, and there's already a difference in sensation. Sometimes is one arm feeling longer than the other? Is one arm warmer, or can you feel parts of the fingers or parts of the wrist that you didn't normally pay attention to? So let's do one hand today. You can this is being recorded, so you'll all get the recording, so you can do the other hand next time, okay? But if we just do one hand, open the fall board, and now do the same thing, but on key, and see if how many of you, if the finger like somehow gets the idea, oh, now I have to play the piano, and then the finger does something, or can it just crumple as neutrally and as indifferently as when you did it on the fall board? And the slower you go, the more you'll feel. And by the way, the slower you go, the more you'll tend to actually notice that there are hitches in the movement, like it sort of goes tuk 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 instead of just smooth, like continuously smooth. So can you go extremely slow, but still have it be continuously smooth? And then the fingers start folding in a different direction from the direction they were folding in before. And then the hand goes to a different spot on the white keys, and the palm goes to a different place as it's falling off the white keys and sliding down onto your lap. And then you try again after resting, of course. And some people like that the arch of the hand, the second the metacarpal phalangeal joint, some of them are going down or up, or they don't know where to go. So if you just crumple the hand, does that arch go up, down, up, down, up, down, or does it just follow a continuous path? Yeah. Christine. Oh, hello, Andrea. When did you show up? And we have Alex Schmushoff, who is another newcomer. Great. So this is hang your 2 hands by your side and notice, is there a change in feeling between the hand that was doing this and the other one? The wrists, does the wrist feel different? Does the forearm, does the elbow feel different? Does the shoulder feel different? Are you sitting differently? Did you go to a different spot on your sits bones from where you normally would? Because something has let go in that arm that was doing this weird exercise. So this all this stuff I'm asking you, this Phil didn't bother with. He just said had her do the exercise. And you notice that we're doing it without playing. And so this whole introductory section, there are several different pieces in it, although it's only one chapter. Usually I did one composition for each chapter, but here there are so many things that can go wrong with this. For instance, you could many people, the finger will actually try to play the piano, and there's a stiffening, like there's a structuralization of the finger, so that now it's not just three loose bones curling and uncurling, folding and unfolding, collapsing and uncollapsing, but there's some sort of structure. It's like trying to stand up. But this, you will stand up eventually to play, but if you do this and resist the attempt, that reflexive attempt to stand up, then it will educate and inform how you eventually do stand up. But now cultivate that so-called mistake and actually come to the key and let the fingertip go to the bottom of the key and then stiffen the finger and then come back up again. So actually stiffen and come back up. And boom, stiffen and come back up. And a different finger, stiffen and come back up. Dina, could you be even more vertical? Like I'm being ridiculously vertical. You see? Yeah, like that. Like that. Yeah, and David as well. Yeah. Maggie, that's good. Yeah. Christine, I can only see the top of your head. I admire your hairdo, but I prefer to see your hand. Yeah. Grace. Now, Grace is doing an interesting variation. And Katja Mauro is another Feldenkrais piano person, long-standing dear friend of mine and colleague, and she said that, why are you lifting your shoulder and your elbow, Alan, when you do this? And many of you are copying me, but Grace is doing it like this, from the elbow. Yeah? So, from the elbow. And so, yeah, look at Grace. That's it. So that's a completely different movement, but also very valuable. Yeah. So Grace, if you can do that, and then when you come to key, stop before you go to the horizontal. Like just your hands dangling. It's not quite, you see, why do I put my elbow up this? I never explained this to Katya clearly. When you put your elbow way up high like that, then the hand can dangle more vertically. You see? Dum, dum, dum. Yeah. No matter what finger you're doing, see when the elbow's down here, then the hand is not quite as vertical. So Grace, when you do it, yeah, okay, Grace, that's great. So when you do it with the elbow high, the hand is fully vertical. And so it's really like a pogo stick, and we'll do the pogo stick afterwards. But when the elbow is down, it's slightly less vertical, but I want you to keep that pogo stick feeling. So once you've got contact, do not go to the horizontal, but just stay there and peck it like that, Grace. Thank you. So that's a good distinction which Grace has shown us. Yeah. So of course, where are we? This is the pogo stick. It's the second one, the second piece, the pogo stick. And basically, you would get your students to try this exercise and crumple, 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 crumple. And if they don't crumple, but they try to play the note, then emphasize that. Feldenkrais often will go with the strategy. So if somebody's doing too much of something, like I'm sitting too much on my right sits bone, Feldenkrais will have you go more on the right sits bone. And then it's easier to change to something more symmetrical. So that's the idea of the pogo stick. Okay, you want to stiffen your finger? I told you not to, but you stiffen your finger. Okay, now let's really stiffen that finger. Like that. And then you make a little game of it. That's right. And then you try the same thing, but going to the other way, and now see if it's easier because you stiffened. Now that you can you really feel how to make a slight sound without stiffening anything anywhere in your whole system?
What happens when you play the pinky? Do you fold the other fingers under?
Uh, Good question. I kind of just turned my hand a little. I'll do it this way. I turned it a little sideways. Like I just did this. So you see now my pinky is vertical and the other fingers are to the inside. And for the second I turned my hand to the outside so that the second is the closest one. So I can do so I can do my and that's actually related to the Liszt bicycle spoke exercise. Franz Liszt made an exercise where he says, imagine your fingers or 5 fingers are the 5 spokes of a bicycle wheel, and you just it's in my second book of Honing the Pianistic Self-Image, but here we're not going to do that, but we could angle the hand so that we can get any finger we want to be the pogo stick finger without resorting to curling the others. But if you can't do it, then sure, curl the other fingers loosely. But of course, when you curl the other fingers loosely, then you're going to want to curl that finger loosely too. So that's a very good question because it's quite complex. Can I curl some fingers and leave the other finger totally straight? You know? I can actually, but it's a more complex neurological phenomenon. Because if I, for instance, if I just flex my thumb like that, then the fingers are also coming towards the thumb. It's not just the thumb coming towards the finger. So there's all sorts of resonance going on between different parts. Okay. So we've done Lazy Lion. Why did I write Lazy Lion on the black keys? I have no idea. Because this is, yeah. I don't know. One would think that for a tiny little person's hand, that like getting that finger onto a black key is more difficult than getting the finger onto a right key. So if you're doing this and you find that your kids can play Lazy Lion much easier on the white keys, then just transpose it a half tone up or down, and that's very easy to do. So now we get variations which are a sort of a development in complexity. So now we're going to dangle, and do it. It's not like a pogo stick because it looks like a pogo stick, but there's no stiffening of the finger. Yeah? No stiffening of the finger. No stiffening of the finger. Yeah. And then the tightrope walker, this is the nice thing. And I'm sorry I did it wrong. The tightrope walker is, so obviously if the finger's totally limp, then it's a little wiggle of the arm that's playing those 3 notes, but leaving everything loose, like the fingers are as loose as a rope. So you imagine you've got a rope, and you put the rope on the key, and you do wiggles so that somehow you get that rope, which has no agency of its own. It's just a dead thing. And you sort of make that rope play a repeated note. That's right. And feel what's going on in the upper arm, in the neck, in the forearm, in the elbow. Yeah. Yeah, David, I think you're using too much effort. I want to do this, and then come up. Just 3. Yeah, because it's amazing how many times we have to reinforce the arm is floating. The arm is floating. The arm is weightless. My arm has weight, but it's not going to fall. It's the weighted arm is going to come up. And that, of course, is a preparation for Elegant Alliance, which is the first piece I ever wrote for Pianimals. and there it's the hand is going up and down. And now we're really doing the original Phil Cohen exercise, because it's the sound a note without any of the normal musculature involved. We use a completely, so we're actually sounding the note with the arm, but the arm is continually flowing. So actually the arm and the finger are differentiated. And we prove that they are differentiated by being able to repeat with no, you see why I've been harping at you for so long to don't flex, don't stiffen, try to get the key moving without any sense of stiffening anywhere, because the whole thrust of Elegant Alliance is to be able to repeat a note without stiffening at all, and without the arm segmenting its movement. The arm is breathing an out breath, an out breath, an out breath. And it's one continuous out breath, not several. If you're not sure whether you're segmenting it or not, then you put the other hand on your forearm. Yeah. You're looking perplexed, David. What's your question?
Can you play multiple times with the arm in a continuous movement?
Yeah, so you see, the arm didn't stop moving down. The floating flamingo halfway through the book does the same thing going up. If that's easier for you, like the arm is now breathing in. If that's easier for you, then try it that way, and then go to the more difficult one, which for some perverse reason I put at the beginning of the book, which is doing that repeated thing, going down with no segmentation of the arm movement. It's an out breath. So if you can't do 5, then you just do 2.
Is the
1,
finger different a
2.
little bit that creates that?
I don't feel like I'm doing this at all with my finger. I
Okay.
don't feel that. I feel it must be doing something.
I think I get it.
But the thing is that whatever that little thing is doing it's so tiny that it feels like nothing. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, start with a higher wrist. David, you start with a higher elbow. Do this weird elbow up in the air thing. Yeah, you're going to get it better like that. See, now your arm has further to go. Like now oh yeah, I can really feel what going down is. Excuse me, I've just got an email from somebody who's trying to get in. Oh, okay. No, she's not. Okay, good, 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 good. Excellent. Okay, questions. We already had it. This is too weird. What's this guy doing? The hand is a mini body. Most of my arguments come from people who were brought up with the weight technique, and so I've given up saying don't play with weight. I say play with weight, but I just make sure that it's a living weight, like the weight of my own body, which is not clump, clump, clump down the street, but which moves in gracious. And the other thing is although this movement here seems very generic, one of the most frequent questions I get is like somebody's playing. Somebody's playing a melody like that, and they think, "Oh my God, it's not really singing. Could I use the Elegant Alliance technique to play this melody?" And my answer is always, "By all means." That's exactly what it's designed for. So if you just do that, but of course I'm doing floating flamingo, which is you can also go doing it, but it's basically the idea of the arm is moving at a different speed than the notes are moving. But we get this idea of a totally, almost a disembodied arm, an arm which is not connected to the finger by any stiffening, by just doing this original crumpling thing and uncrumpling thing. So I like to do this first because it's kind of weird, but it sets the stage for everything it follows. If this experience that you have now permeates your subsequent experiences studying pianimals, then it's all to the good.
I have a question.
Yes, Maggie.
So, in real time with a 6-year-old who can
Yeah,
barely stay sitting in the chair,
yeah.
if I have maybe a minute, maybe 3 minutes, I mean, how does this work when you're in the ground with little children who, especially modern little kids, have kind of no interest? You know, I have been doing a little bit of this sort of thing with them, and it's very hard to get them to say something about that.
Yeah, it's a completely valid question, and generally studio teachers don't have a lot of time, so I offer through this book I offer very short versions of these things. So now we're doing it for a long time, and I took you through each of the, but you might telescope this into 30 seconds with a kid, but I think and it's slow down, and they're not interested in slowing down. They want so, but every kid loves things that are weird, and every kid loves things that are gross. So you go, "Ugh, make yourself like this," and they go, "And did you fall over, or did you poke it?" I mean, there's always a way. There's Amy. Uh, Hi. There's always. Christine has been using this stuff for a long time. Christine Olson, so she might have something to add to what I just said. Is that what you are
Yeah,
waving yourself? Yeah.
you're you're demonstrating it. It's you put it into a story, an image, anything that is fun and grabs their attention. But you never say, "Oh, let's drop your arm." You say, "Oh, here comes a log blowing up from the sky or something." You're good at stories, so
Mm-hmm.
it's all about the imagery and the story that you add,
Yeah. Which
and
is
then very
basic.
brief, very brief, very brief.
Mm-hmm. And which is and these which is basically why every chapter has its own animal. So there and there's a lolling elephant. So for lying rolling the hand onto the back, there's a baby elephant and the mother is changing her diaper. And for playing the piano like this, there's abominable ape who's who kind of like he was a little too the piano did not survive. So every single one of these exercises has an animal, and so you can very quickly look. You point at the exercise at the illustration, and they say, "Okay, do that," or bird beaks picking. Yeah, the bird beak series. That's a whole other thing. A lot of the standing up exercises are based on the bird beak, which is an extremely quick way. So, but a really great question because yes, who's gonna oh, who's got time for that? So there has to be a quick way. In my experience, when I take so much time to do it like this with you, because you're grown up and everything, then your experience is really rich, like and enriched on so many levels, and then it's up to you to telescope it to make it shorter but not less profound, shorter but not superficial. And I find that people are really good at doing that, but you'll be better at doing that if you didn't do the shorter version, if you did the extended version, and you've got it, because then you've got every detail of this sensory experience in your body. Because when you want to shorten it to it, you're going to have to sacrifice certain of those details. But if you have all the details in you, then you'll generally sacrifice the ones that that particular kid doesn't need so much, and you'll retain the particular details that, oh yeah, that this particular aspect could really help this kid. Like some kids, they're stiff as a board, so they need this crumpling thing. Other people are just like totally wimpy, so this kind of crumpling exercise, it's like, they already do that all the time and it's chronic. So maybe, the stand-up exercise or the bird beak exercise. So different kids in your studio may get diametrically opposed, treatment or because you can pick and choose of this from this whole set. You don't have to give every kid all of them. And as I write in the introduction, it's actually Christine Olsen asked me about this, which is why I ended up making a paragraph about it: structure versus sensation, the second page of the introduction. So as you go through, there will about half of the exercises do a very strong structuralization, like feel that structure, feel the power of those bones when they stand up. When they stand up, wow, isn't that great? And boom, 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 like that, and all sorts of stuff. And the other half are like this sensorial kind of lolling around and sensing every tiny detail. And I tend to linger at the two extremes and trust you to find the middle. I don't do I'll do the exercise, I'll write some exercise, and it's either a sensorial one or a structural one. And then the piece, of course, already in the composition, is not using that exercise in a pure form, but it's already translated into music. Except in certain cases, I actually wrote for Abominable Ape, that's for Waltzing Wally Walrus, actually, yeah? But even then, it's playing music, you're already, so the initial exercise gives you a sensory experience, a sensory impression, and then the brain uses that illumination of, this is who I am, this is my hand, this is how it works, this is how it feels, and then you're playing music. So the pieces try to be a kind of an intermediate step. The piece does use that particular exercise in a musical way. So it's not quite like just going to normal repertoire. There's this intermediate integrative step, which is why this thing works so well in conjunction with other methods or your own. I mean, you probably have your own repertoire, your own series of pieces you like to give your kids. So this is designed to dovetail, complementary to other methods, not to replace other methods. Does that answer your question, Maggie? Yeah? Great. Yeah. Any other questions? Oh. David. Oh yeah, David's picture disappeared. Yeah. Okay, so
Sorry, I actually do have a question.
yes, Dina.
Sorry to kind of backtrack, and I think you maybe answered it, but the exercise we just did, there was this sort of high arm.
Yeah.
And then I think it was Grace who was doing this version. Did you say that was a different exercise,
No,
or?
it's the same exercise, it's just a different way of doing it.
Okay.
And in the book, I make no comment. I don't say lift your elbow up high. I don't say leave the elbow down low and just do it from the forearm. I do say lift your arm up. So in my mind, that means your whole arm. But Katya, bless her heart, she's not here today, but she caught me. Alan, like, how can you make all that tension in your shoulder? You're a Feldenkrais practitioner. Of course you have to do it like this. And actually, it's only today now that we were discussing it, I realized, oh, when you're like that, the hand could be more vertical. I never figured it out until now. So I'll have to get back to Katya. And you see, there was a reason. I wasn't just being a poorly organized Feldenkrais practitioner.
I guess my first thought with the arm like that is, I mean, I'm very new to this, just for everyone else, so this is my first kind of experience. Yeah. But thinking with a child doing something like that, will they then think this is how they have to play the
right.
Right? So
no, I would actually do that, and you see how many of them you can fool into playing like that for like months and months. Wouldn't that be a good joke?
Keep paying, parents. Keep paying. Okay, thank you.
My daughter went to a daycare in Novi Sad with all Serbian kids. And then there was this Australian boy showed up one day, and he spoke no Serbian. And the teacher said, "Oh, good, Masha, you can speak with Alexander." So she comes home and she tells me this, and she says, "Dad, you know what I did? I didn't speak English with him once the whole day. Wasn't that a good joke?" Said, "Okay, Dad, no, darling, yeah, that was a very good joke. You know, you're supposed to join with your kids, but tomorrow you'll speak English." "No, no, I'm going to do it again tomorrow." So I would love to see a Christmas recital with everybody playing like this. That would be so great. Okay. Anyway, yeah, I mean, and actually, you know, we always learn best when we're having fun. I mean, Feldenkrais said it repeatedly through his training. It's like, when you're laughing, you're learning way better. So there's something to be said for that kind of joke. Yeah. No. So would you now please mute your mics and take whatever kind of music you want to take, some piece that you're playing now, and you try to play whichever hand was doing this weird, elegant alliance. The chapter is actually titled, the title of the chapter is actually "The Most Beautiful Sound in the World." Because how I started off in the book is like, have them play a note and then notice how much constriction there is in the way they play, and then let's go, is the sound more beautiful when you play it with nothing constricting any, and see whether playing with a real sensory memory of these exercises, these floating arm exercises, whether it makes a difference, one, in your physical feeling, but of course much more important, in the sound of the music. Maggie, your camera's too close. I can't see your arms. I want to see those floating flamingo arms. Thank you. So fool around with it for a couple of minutes, and then I'll take a survey. I'm really interested, because I don't know if this stuff is effective or not. You know, did the experience of the awareness through piano movement lesson go away, or do you actually notice a difference? What kind of a difference is it? And what are your impressions? What's going on in your experience? What's that integrative step look like? Going from a pure sensory exercise to actual playing. Come see, come saw, David.
No, more pronation, like way more pronation.
Oh, way more pronation.
Yeah, way more just like using.
This is very cool. This I like. This is very good, and it's so interesting. Who would have thunk that would be what happens? But the nervous system takes the information, and then it's a new self-image, and then, okay, wait a minute, let's go here. Anybody else? Yes, Grace.
Yeah, I have more of a sensation of riding the key up and down.
Ah, this is wonderful. Yeah.
You can kind of feel it being spongy.
Great. Great. And this, of course, relates directly to another one of my favorite provocative statements, which is that the biggest illusion in piano playing is that the key goes down. Oh, it's in here somewhere, but I can't remember which chapter. Anybody remember? And of course, of course the piano keys go down, but what Grace just said, that she felt it going down and coming back up again. She was sliding on it and in it and through it, which is a fundamentally different relationship to the key from pressing it down. So, and now all the reflexes all the way through the arm and into the body were tuned to allow her to have that experience of the key. But that's going to fundamentally change the way you play piano in general. So it's a wonderful example of we do a certain reflexive kind of exercise to enrich the sensation, and then we don't really even know what the results are going to be. Like what's going to be the benefit, what's going to be the improvement. It can be something quite unexpected, but it relates in this case very much to the key is a lever. It's not something I press down, and by the way, if I hold it down, it's no longer a lever. And my finger is no longer a lever either. I'm holding it down, I'm contracted, and the key is compressed, constricted. So as soon as the key loses its ability to be a lever, then the music stops. It's a dead sound. And when the key continues to be a lever, it continues to be able to move. So I move the key and I'm aware that the key is moving my finger back up. The key is pushing my finger back up. Therefore, my finger never stops being a lever. So you see, my finger's not going up and down. It's obviously a lever. It's just going sideways. This is just going back and forth. It's a lever. So the fact that the key goes up and down is not its fundamental nature. That's just it's chance, and it's how the mechanism works. But if we, gravity, we don't have to help gravity out by pressing it down more. If we just treat it as a lever. So this sensory exercise of floating the hand and collapsing the finger and then uncollapsing the finger, but not with finger effort, just there are many unexpected benefits. And of course, there's a kind of an optimal way of moving where there are no parasitic contractions, where no muscular effort is wasted. There's nothing goes into holding that would block movement. Everything goes into actually moving something. And the honing the sensory basis of our movement allows us to attain to that kind of really well-organized movement. And that's when the piano starts to sing, because we're not compressing it, we're freeing it to the soundboard to move when we free the key to move. Yeah? I love that, Grace. Anybody else? Yes, Maggie.
There's a lot more breath in my body.
There's a lot more breath in your body. Wow. Great. Yeah. Again, when we get into that key and stand on it, but in a compressive way, there's this kind of it's almost like armoring, they call it. It's like psychologists call it armoring, right? Where the whole body will contract in resonance with that hand contraction. So now, the hand is just moving, the arm is just breathing it, and the ribs are, they're doing the same. Oh, I like what that hand-arm thing is doing. I can do that too. Yeah. And the shoulders are freer. When this, Katya accused me of tensing my shoulders, but actually, no, I was not tensing my shoulder. I was just allowing it to float. It's a very, very different feeling. So it's amazing how much the shoulder can rise without tensing. If you're just following the hand. Look at that, it went right through to my left hip joint. Zoop. Yeah. And the more I do this float, crumple, slide, uncrumple, rest, the more the whole body decides, I like that. I don't like these contractions. Let's just dispense with them. And all of a sudden we can breathe.
I've been dealing with some tension in my forearms.
Your voice is kind of distant, Brian. Can you turn your volume up? You've been dealing
Is that
with
better?
tension. Yeah, it's much better.
Okay. Yeah, I've been dealing with a lot of tension in my forearms, especially when I'm trying to play something quicker. So I was noticing that this feels very relaxed. I'll be just curious to see how that translates to, as I pick up tempo.
Okay, so here's what you do. In order to have this translate when you pick up tempo, it'll be good for you if you keep a certain strategy in your mind, which is based on the following. So when I get out of the chair, the legs, they go into extension and they launch the body up, okay? So you tell me, where is the initiation for standing up, for getting out of a chair? Is it in the legs? Watch carefully. Where was the initiation for standing up? Yes, Brian, you muted yourself.
It's in the forward lean.
It's in the body. It's in the torso. Yeah. So the faster you want to go on the key, the more the arm is going to lead. The big mistake we make is I'm already tense because I'm moving my arm as much as I need to. But that's generic. It's journeyman. It's just like I'm moving the arm as much as I need to, but no more. But if I wanted to shape the phrase, and if I wanted to attain to the same function as getting out of a chair, then my arm is going to initiate, and the fingers end up they can manipulate the keys. They can manipulate the keys with virtually no effort because the arm is taking them. The arm is taking them where they need to be. Yeah. So you're feeling good because of what we did now, but you can do something very practical and overt, like you lead with your arm more in whatever passage work you're doing. I had a guy yesterday, Chopin Fourth Ballade. That left-hand part, second theme, second time, and I had him actually do the teetering. So this is from Pianimals Pointers. It's variation 6, and I had him stand on one finger and bunch another finger in there, and then teeter. So it's basically doing this, but teetering ridiculously far. So you see what I'm doing? I'm teetering and I'm going almost lying down, way, way, way farther. And this guy is a new student of mine, a sweet boy. He says, "Professor, you're my idol. I've been reading your books since I was a little kid." Unbelievable. Some guy, he lives in Hanoi. So we finally got him lying down like this, and I told him, "Okay, now play that passage like that." What? You must be insane. And finally, when he did it, not only was it about virtually effortless, like literally 5% of the effort he had been investing in that, it sounded way better because it bubbles. Yeah. So that's an extreme version of what I'm suggesting you do, Brian. But that again, it's an extreme application of this initial sensory experience, which is really going to make a lot of our passage words take off. It's a little more tricky when you have to change direction. Like, now there's a little change of direction, but you basically ignore it. Yeah. You do a little kind of a flippy thing. You see, I did something for the change of direction, but I didn't go back. No ballet dancer doing a choreography would just go back. They would kind of wiggle through. You understand? It's a compound movement. And so, you see, I can walk, a guy walking down the street, all the dynamics of walking are there. The legs stand up, the body's moving smoothly while the legs move segmentedly. That's the arm joining notes, the fingers creating notes. But a choreography, an artistic ballet dancer goes way further. And that's why this kind of a movement, this kind of shaping the phrase, I mean, the art of shaping the phrase like that, that's something you're going to be investigating for the rest of your lives, because there's no end to it. And every time it'll be a little bit different, because it's like two snowflakes. There's no two, they're the same. I can try and do it exactly the same, but if it's living and not just a reproduction, then there will be a subtle responsiveness in there that allows it to be truly unique. You know, I did this to sound similar, but it wasn't the same as the last one. Each one is new. And I'm glad we're talking about this, because this is really one of the deep underlying intentions of Pianimals. This is not just to make you play a little better or, you know, to resolve some technical problems. So we're going for a deeper, more responsive and individual kind of artistry. So, you know, I talk a lot about, no, just angle your arm more this way, you know, stuff like that. But if we think it's just physical, that's a deceptive kind of a perception. Yeah. I mean, I made the same mistake for dozens and dozens of years. I mean, I was studying with Phil Cohen, and I had all my notes, and it was move your wrist to the left on the F sharp, and then stand the thumb up more on the E. I had reams and reams, dozens and dozens of pages of these notes. This is in the days, this is 1980s, nobody filmed their lessons. I recorded some of my lessons on audio tape. Difficult to figure out what the hell was going on. I threw all those notes away because, like, it means nothing. Stand up more on the F sharp. But that's what I thought it was. I wanted so much to learn this stuff that I got stuck in this. It's the physical grammar of it. But the physical grammar, it's only a reflection of what we want to do musically. And if we have a grammar of spontaneity, then we know how to move ourselves on key so that the relationship to the key is always dynamic and responsive and never imposed. That's the deeper thrust of Pianimals. There was another question, I think.
And that's a book, The Grammar of Spontaneity.
It's a series of Feldenkrais lessons given by Ruthie Allon.
Ruthie
Is it a book as
Allon.
well?
I just
'Cause
got her book, yeah.
I know it as a series of cassette tapes.
I had that too. That's what I went for
Oh,
first.
'cause
but
there's
I'm
a book
interested
too?
in the book.
Oh,
Yeah,
there-
she has a wonderful approach to awareness through movement lessons. She was a very
Ruthie-
airy and
Yeah,
artistic woman.
Ruthie's lessons are pure gold. I mean but you know, then I used her title, The Grammar of Spontaneity, in here, and I call it, what we're doing here is we're developing a pianistic grammar of spontaneity. So it directly is from Ruthie that I got this wonderful formulation, which I think, you know, there's a lot in that formulation. You can delve really deeply into that and spend years discovering what the implications are and what that really means at a deeper and wider level. Yeah. Any other questions? Okay, we'll leave
How
you.
short are your fingernails?
Today they're not particularly short, actually. I should cut them.
Mine are too long. Yeah.
Oh, just
You
play
know,
with flat fingers. Just play with flat fingers. This is the long finger now. You can play anything with flat fingers. Clamp your thumb to the fingers and boo, 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 boo. That's, it's this one. There you go. That's right. It's Sassy Seal. Sassy Seal. It's the first lying down exercise. That's exactly what you do. Alejandra, you had something to say.
Yeah, just a comment. After all that, I feel my arm softer and yes, smoother, and in an easier condition to move it anywhere. It
Yes.
feels really very well, and yeah, in fact, more in control
More in
to
control.
play. And I think I just quit my end gaining intention to play and let it be more.
Fantastic. Thank you. I'm glad it was
Yeah.
so helpful. So this is why I like to make I did decide to make this one the introduction, and for people to come back to it when they've completed each section, and to always have that in the background somewhere when you see your pupil could use a little of that, just have them do it for a minute or two. Yeah. Look, several of you are new, and I'm really glad that you're here and partaking. If some of you have turned your cameras off, but what we're going to do now, the structure of this online institute once a week is that we have the awareness through piano movement lesson, and then we have individual lessons. So when you pay your fee, you just pay $25, and that's for what we just did. But everybody's welcome to stay now for the lessons which are going to follow. And if you have sort of a question but you're not quite ready to formulate it yet or whatever, we're going to have a little discussion after each lesson now. And if you have anything that relates to what we just did or what you saw in the lesson, please feel free to join in. So let's take a break for just a couple of minutes, a water in, water out break, and then we'll start with our individual sessions.
Alan, you'll have a tape of this?
Yeah, this
Recording.
is being recorded. It's being
I have-
recorded twice. It's being recorded by me in gallery view and by Hanno in speaker view. Oh, and I forgot. For the lessons, let me do that right now before I forget. I'm going to stop this recording.